Mark, thank you for your time today. I'm excited to hear some of your knowledge and experience on building or rebuilding, as we've named this session, an agency's pipeline or an agency pipeline. Just one glance at your LinkedIn profile, and it was quite clear that your passion or one of your main passions lies within helping specifically agency businesses grow in inbound sales and aligning them with their company goals, right? Can you give us some background? How did you get where you are now, and how has your career evolved so far? And what are maybe some of the achievements you'd like to highlight? Something that you're proud of?
Sure. And Maria, thank you, first of all, for inviting me. Really keen to have this conversation and try and share as much value as I can. I could talk about sales for hours and hours, but I know we don't have too much time to cover everything. Just a bit of background. I've been working in sales and or marketing for the last 15 years. So I actually started in recruitment and I worked for recruitment agencies, which are like bad people. They have a terrible reputation, but there's an element of new business development and then there's the candidate sourcing side. So you kind of do a dual job. After a few years in recruitment, I moved into marketing. And then I started to scratch my entrepreneurial itch. I went traveling for a year basically, and I didn't really want to go back to a 9 to 5 office job. And I had got very good at implementing HubSpot. I'd done that for 3 companies that I worked at previously. And I was asked to implement HubSpot for people. So I did that as a consultant, very close to sales and marketing. So always been that glue between the two. That led to me running a 100-person remote agency, which did lead sourcing. So all the research and list building that you need to do for your outbound prospecting campaigns. Did that for about a year. I was getting a little bit tired of kind of putting out fires that I didn't cause in the first place. And I kind of a little bit arrogantly thought to myself, I could probably build an agency from scratch myself and not have all of these headaches. That was true and wasn't true. But I co-founded a podcast guest booking agency, which the whole method was reaching out on cold email to podcast hosts, although we were pitching podcast guests rather than a meeting. So it was a little bit easier. I sold that and exited that in December 2022. I took 6 months off, which was really nice. Then I got bored of taking all that time off and I started working as a consultant again, which brings us back to where you started. I work a lot with agencies, helping them either increase pipeline or close more deals. So that's the two sides of the sales coin that I help with. In terms of achievements, through the work I did with a lot of outbound prospecting, I was asked to teach a course on outbound prospecting for sales reps, as well as cold email writing. And I've taught thousands of students through those courses, which I'm really proud of. And I think the second proudest achievement is when I sold the agency and exited. Uh, one of my real motivations was that the team stayed within the business and no major changes were made. And you know, two years later, the majority of the team is still there. Some people have left on their own accord. But yeah, I'm really proud of that the team that we put in place are still working there.
Really great. I mean, I know just from some of our work that we've done with consultants or firms that do agency M&As, like it's really important to to not only be selling the agency, but its actual main resource, right? Which is people
Yeah.
and the talent that you're selling. Yeah, great. Sounds really great. So yeah, one of the main pain points, as many of us know, of the last 12, 18 months has been exactly what you're specialized in. So like how to move the pipeline forward, how to close those deals or find new avenues for sales. So really happy to be having this conversation. Let's start from the beginning then. So having a dedicated business development team in an agency. We previously did a study at Productive not so long ago. It turned out that about 35% out of the almost 800 agencies that we interviewed or that we got data from had a business development strategy and team in place, but still heavily relied on founders. How commonly do you see this, and what do you advise to agencies that rely too heavily on their founders to run sales or to close deals?
Yeah, so it's very common to see that the founder or the agency owner is still involved in the sales process, and I think it really does come down to the maturity of the agency and how long they've been operating for, and the size of the overall team. But it does depend on the size of the agency, and for most people at the beginning, you just don't have the budget or even the capacity to hire and onboard a salesperson. And you might not even have a service market fit. You might have an idea of an offering. You've got a couple of clients. This is the very early stages. So it's not a good idea to kind of bring in a sales team until you have worked out some of these things. It's a bit like in the world of software, that product market fit, the ever elusive thing that you're looking and chasing. But as you grow and start closing smaller deals sorry, similar deals and selling the services, it might be time to think about hiring in the sales function. But one of the mistakes a lot of agency owners make is that they don't have the process documented or a playbook for somebody to follow. And then they expect somebody to come in to close as many deals as they're closing whilst they build out the system, whilst they build out and document the process. And it just doesn't really happen. So you need to have those processes documented if you want that salesperson to do really well. And typically, how I see people approach building the business development team is they bring in a sales development rep first, or somebody who can generate appointments for the founder or the agency owner to close. And eventually, once that sales development rep is booking in enough meetings, it might be time to bring in an account executive. But the founder will typically still be involved, especially in that transferring that knowledge to the account executive that comes in. But the true unlock of removing the agency owner from the sales process is when you hire a seasoned sales leader. But these are very, very hard to find. And a lot of agency owners want that sales leader in quicker, but really the business is just not ready for them. And oftentimes the sales leader will be great at leadership, but ask them to book their own appointments. It's not really a job that they want to do anymore. So there's a bit of a mismatch of expectations. But the reality is, I still haven't met many agency owners who have a sales team that can close better than they can at a higher rate than they can, because you're the founder. That resonates with people, especially if you're selling to other agency owners or other founders as well. And you've seen every iteration, every price change, every website update on in your agency. So you have a lot more context, and that really comes through when you have your qualification calls and discovery calls as well. So I think it's not impossible, but the expectations need to be managed, that you'll never find somebody who's going to be, the carbon copy of you for closing deals.
Sure. And when do you usually see, like, you've probably worked with so many, different type, well, every agency is its own little world, right? Like its own universe. It has its own types of customers and the services it shines with. And, like, what is there something like, is it specifically size that will kind of, guide this decision on as to when to get a sales either representative or director?
Yeah, it really depends. There's no easy formula to give an answer, because it depends on the price point. So are you selling a 300 a month service versus a 30,000 a month or 300,000 a month? How long are the sales cycles? Does it take a couple of weeks to close deals? Does it take a year to close deals? So there is a lot of variables there. I'd say on the smaller end. So my specialty is working with companies that are 10 to 50, maybe 50 to 100 in size. I typically see that those that are 50 to 100 have more sophisticated or more mature sales model. But in some cases, the founder might act as that sales leader, or the chief operations officer might also be working as the sales leadership too. There's a client that I'm working with at the moment. They are, I think, 60 people. They have 2 account executives. They have a team of sales development reps as well, and they all report into the chief operating officer. She's doing a great job, that they probably don't need a sales rep just yet until they get to that next, a sales leader, until maybe they get to the next level. But again, it's very unique to their service, how much it costs, how long it takes to close these deals.
Sure, sure. When you like audit an agency's outbound strategies, are there any other common problems that rise to the surface besides this? When to hire, when to allocate a team, what would you say are some of the top struggles?
Yeah, specifically with outbound strategies and outbound prospecting, and I feel like most of the audience will be familiar with that. But that process is you build a list of prospects that fit the criteria. You send out messages and you hope that they reply positively, so you can book a meeting, and then from that meeting you go on to close a deal in the ideal world. So the biggest mistakes I see, and it's across the board, is that a lot of agencies don't have a clear understanding of who their ideal clients are and the people that they should be speaking to. I actually, for me, it's a little bit of a red flag if a potential prospect comes to me and says, we can work with anyone, because that is not the way to build a strategy. Because if you can work with anyone, then how are you different to all of the other people that they could potentially work with? And it shows that you don't really have a clear understanding of like, who are the best clients for us? Because yes, in theory, you could work with everybody, but there'll be some clients and industries that are nightmares to work with, and there'll be others who are a pleasure to work with. Similar to this is having pretty poor messaging, and quite frankly, boring positioning. It's like, we build backlinks for you. It's like there's nothing interesting about that, and a lot of people are saying the same thing. And with the messaging, when I say poor, what I mean by this is that a lot of the times the mistake is made that they just talk about them. We are an award-winning agency and we do this and we are amazing and we have this team and we have these skills. And at the end of the day, your prospects don't care about you, they care about them and the problems and challenges that they face. And they want to find a solution to those. They just want to know, can I trust you as a solution or a service provider to help me overcome my challenges? So the TLDR of that is, make your copy less about you and more about your prospect and the problems they might be facing. And that will improve the reply rates and the number of meetings that you book. And then the last common thing that I see is that just inconsistency with outbound, or maybe not sending enough volume. But they need to get those first 2 points right. They need to get their understanding of the ideal client profile as well as the right messaging before they kind of ramp up the volume.
Sure, and like the two first ones, they kind of go hand in hand, right? Because if you don't know who you're selling to, who your ideal client is, then of course you're positioning yourself in a way that's like, oh, we can do this and I'm this, and but who are you communicating that to? So yeah, I guess it goes hand in hand.
Yeah,
Thanks.
Maria, I can give an example because I think it's always useful to give examples with things like this. So my previous agency, which I'm still involved in as like a non-exec, and just sit on the board still and enjoy, collaborating with them still. We sell to two core audiences. We have B2B marketers and we have coaches and consultants. The way and what we do as a service is we book people on interviews on podcasts where their audiences are listening to. So a coach and a consultant has a very different requirement than a B2B marketing team does. So we need to talk in those different languages, and the B2B marketing team might be talking about brand awareness, thought leadership, whereas the coaches and consultants might be talking about getting their message out there. They're more on a mission, they're more personally invested in spreading the word. So when we're talking to these two different audiences, we want to use their language. When we reach out to B2B brands, or when we're on sales calls with them, we're talking about thought leadership, we're talking about brand awareness, we're talking about content repurposing. When we speak to the coaches and the consultants, we're talking about the importance of getting their message out there, having content to be able to share with their already community or their newsletter. So you tailor the service is exactly the same, but you tailor the message and the conversation based on what languages, and I don't mean kind of French, German, Spanish languages, but the language that your prospects are using.
Of course, yeah. No, it's a really good, easy to understand example. Um, Now let's talk about budgets a bit. I've recently seen some stats from the Repeatable RevGen for Digital Agencies report done by Promethean Research. In it, it was stated that the average digital agency now invests 7.1% of its revenue in sales and marketing activities. So this includes everything from salaries to media spend, and has historically resulted in an average revenue growth of 13% since 2015. Would you say that this is what agencies are actually spending on gaining new work, on gaining new clients? And do they see such growth rates, so like around 13% per year, or are they not really spending as much on average? And if so, do you encourage them to spend more?
Yeah, so for me, maybe it's because of the type of clients I work with and the size of the organizations, and also when they come to me. So oftentimes when people reach out to me, they say, Mark, we're not closing any deals. I've got 2 reps who haven't closed a deal in the last 3 months. I need your help to get them closing more deals. We're not talking about budgets. We're not talking about investing. We're not talking about the revenue versus the spend. It's like, let's go and put this fire out. The same with outbound as well. Mark, we are not getting the results that we need. We're not getting replies. Can you help us fix it? So maybe because of the service that I offer, I don't really cover the topic of budget and reinvestment in the sales and marketing. So I can't really speak with authority and answer this question if I'm honest. I'm very much like a hired gun to come in and fix stuff before it gets too bad.
I'm sorry. I completely like while I was reading, I was like, oh, this is the question I wasn't supposed to read, but it's okay. If you're comfortable, we can leave it. If not, we could just
Yeah,
remove it. It's
whatever.
no
I'm
problem.
fine.
Yeah. I mean, it's also good that you know your positioning. So and you know to there surely there are agencies that are putting out fires and need help. Um, okay, so according to the Wow Company's recently published bench press report, in the UK, 76% of agencies reported referrals as their strongest source of leads in the past year. We're seeing that they're, looking into seeking out opportunities in their own networks. So my question here is, how much time should agencies be investing in their existing client relationships or, versus other channels when attracting new business? And let's say an agency has decided to pursue client referrals as one of their, leading lead generation tactics. Do you have any tips on implementing like a winning client referral plan?
Yeah, so great question, and I'm a huge fan of referrals in general. I think there's client referrals and there's other types of referrals too. Um, I guess across the board, I'd say whatever you're doing at the moment for client referrals, do it more and do it more consistently. So there's no denying the fact that referrals close at a much higher rate than any other sort of sourced pipeline. So whether that's outbound or paid ads or content and SEO. And they're much more likely to close and be qualified if they're referred by a client. So I recommend that to my clients as one of the first things that they do before we start doing the outbound and some of the other pipeline generation activities is to completely exhaust the client referral channel before starting another one. And because it's just there's so much low hanging fruit there. A lot of times agency owners are a bit cautious that they don't want to be asking too much of their clients and they don't want to appear like they're pestering them. So what I encourage them to do is to connect their asks for those referrals with key client milestones or achievements that the clients have. So in that world of the podcast guesting agency that I co-founded, one of the times that we asked for a referral was when we had secured their first interview. Another time was when we had secured 50% of the interviews that we'd agreed to work on. Another time would be when their interview was live. We would repurpose some of that content for them as a completely free gift with no expectation that they were going to, to decide to purchase that other service from us, but would make the ask again. It's all about I can never say the word reciprocation. So try and tie your ask with that. And an exercise that you could do is what I like to call the moments that matter. If you look at a client engagement and take a typical client engagement that you have, write down all of the moments where the clients actually get what they're paying for. Like if you are doing content marketing, if you're doing backlink building, if you're doing graphic design, there are moments in your relationship with the client where you are giving them the work that they have paid for, and these can be moments that you can ask for those referrals. But I would also suggest to take that one step further and think about moments that you can delight your clients in. What can you do just as a surprise to make your client feel special, feel heard, feel understood, feel like a respected business partner? There are other things that you can do that aren't always related to when you are completing on some of the deliverables. And so another bit of advice there as well is like, don't neglect prospects or partners either. So every call that you have, like a discovery call or qualification call with a potential client, that could also be a referral source as well. There are ultimately going to be times where you have calls with prospects and they're just not the right fit for you, or you're not the right fit for them. don't waste that opportunity. You can ask on that call if they know anybody that might be a better fit. There's also people that you've sent your proposals to. They haven't come back to you, or they decided to go with a different vendor, or they just decided to change priorities. These are people that you can reach out to as well and see. And if you have a referral scheme in place, which you might be giving them a bonus of one time $500, $5,000, depending on what your service costs, or a percentage as that referral fee, then that's something also to highlight as well, just to encourage potentially more people to make those referrals.
Really great tips, especially this, like, tying to deliverables and like the moments where clients are happy. Really great. Some agencies feel that they're maybe way past working for, I don't know, small to medium-sized businesses, or on some kind of shorter term projects where their expertise won't maybe shine. What would you advise to agencies? What would you advise agencies do when client budgets are too small or smaller than their expectations? Should they reconsider and like maybe lower criteria, or just to keep the ball rolling, or what happens in those cases?
Yeah, I think I'm not sure if you'll hear this advice much publicly, but put your ego aside. If you need cash and you can't afford payroll, you're probably going to make different decisions than if payroll was great. You had a buffer of 3 6 months. You can make different decisions with the types of clients that you're working with. Yes, you might want to work with larger organizations or sell larger services, but is that the reality that you're facing? I think a lot of advice out there doesn't really have that reality check at the beginning before it says, like, if this is your situation, then do this. If this is your situation, then do that. But generally speaking, if you're working with smaller budgets, then you could reduce the scope. So that could be less one-on-one meetings with you or the team. Or it could also be improving the efficiency of the service that you offer. Are there ways that you can automate a certain part of the delivery so that your team is spending less time on that? We looked at automating the research process. So, like, how could we invest in better tools, better databases for us to speed up the research process? Um, if you have healthy cash flow and you have that buffer, then simply say no to these smaller projects and find referral partners that you can point them to. So me as an individual, but also as an agency owner, I never liked having a call with somebody where I said, hey, look, I can't help you, goodbye. Like, I always wanted to point them in the right direction. That might be a quote unquote competitor, but I don't believe in competition in that way. I think a rising tide raises all boats. If somebody is offering the service at a different rate or a slightly different variation of the service, I'll always recommend that they speak to certain people so they can actually solve their problem. And the amount of time that's come back like positively to me in the future, I can't even count anymore, because people remember the gesture. But if you are attracting smaller clients and not getting any of the larger ones, then perhaps we need to go back to that point before about revisiting your messaging and your positioning too, because you typically attract what you put out there. And maybe you need to change a few things in the way that you are, positioned in the market.
Yeah, great ones. Last but not least, many agencies have had or have work lined up in their pipelines, but they aren't moving forward with them for either months, or something that used to take a couple of weeks is now taking months and months. And are there any ways that they can somehow help speed up a client's decision-making process? What do you tell agencies that are facing stale pipelines?
Yeah, so interestingly, I have access to about 5 or 6 sales dashboards of some of the agency clients that I've been working with. They had great Aprils, an extremely quiet May, to some point where some of them didn't close any deals in May. And then June, we're recording this on the 20th of June, so we're almost 3/4 of the way through June. And June is looking great for them. And that's across the board if I look at 5 or 6 different agencies. So sometimes there is current events, there's stuff going on in the world, there's hesitation, there's politics. We're in an election year as well, especially if you're in the US, that affects it a lot more. So there are just certain things that you can't control. However, across the board, there are also things you can do to reduce the likelihood of being ghosted, which is the term that is often used there, or things going stale. Before I give some suggestions here, I want to talk about the the 5 questions that prospects ask themselves when they evaluate any vendor, any supplier. So I'll whiz through them quite quickly, but they're asking themselves, will I really benefit from this too? Can I trust this solution? Can I work with this vendor? Do I have enough information to make a decision? And will I be able to justify this? These are the things that are going through your prospects' heads. So there is a lot to share in terms of how to reduce the amount of ghosting and how to speed up the sales cycle. But really, a lot of it starts with the discovery call. And within the discovery call, a couple of tips that I recommend is to really dive deeper into the pain points that your prospects are experiencing and the cost of inaction. So if you are if you help e-commerce companies with their email marketing, asking them how much revenue they're making from email marketing, and they tell you 30%, but their list growth hasn't increased, their conversions have gone down, then I know that 30% of their revenue is coming from email marketing. And if they don't do anything to increase the subscriber rate and increase conversion rates, that their revenue, their top line revenue isn't going to increase. So the longer they don't do something about it, the more revenue they lose. That's a really simple example about talking about the cost of inaction. What happens, especially with agency owners and also sales reps, they on the call, the sales reps will hear what they want to hear. They'll get happy ears and they think, yeah, this is a client, this is a prospect that wants to move forward, they want to work with us, they pretty much said they want to work with us, let's just skip to the solution, let's just skip to the sending the proposal, and then we can get started straight away. But what you need to do is just slow down a little bit and just focus more on that cost of inaction and the real problems. If someone comes to you and says, we need a new website, why? Why do you need a new website? Why now? What have you done so far? What have you tried in the past? When do you want the new website by? Are there campaigns that are coming that you want to run? Who's telling you you need a new website? You know, rather than just hearing we need a new website and I'm saying, oh, we do that. Yeah, we can build you a new website. I really want to understand the problems. I really want to understand the challenges and the why now behind it all. Another tip is to understand the prospect's buying process and who else needs to be involved. So oftentimes you won't be speaking to the ultimate decision maker, or the person just wasn't able to join the call. And you're speaking to the person who might be responsible for implementing some of the services or working with you one-to-one. So you want to find out on the first call who else needs to be involved. A great question to ask in these scenarios is, when you last purchased or when you last bought a service or signed up to work with an agency, what was the process? What did you have to go through? Was there procurement? Was there legal? Ask them how the last buying journey went as well. And then these two are kind of connected. Is I recommend to a lot of agencies to save the full proposal for a second call. It's totally okay to give a rough idea of the pricing, and say the pricing starts at this amount per month or this amount per year. But I need to go away and work on a proposal, which I am happy to present to you on a follow-up call. Let's schedule in 15 minutes in a few days' time. You know, it's Thursday today, so maybe I'd say Monday. I will send you the proposal ahead of that call, but we can go through the proposal together and I can answer any questions that you have. The reason you want to do that as a salesperson is, one, you or agency owner, you're in control of the process, and two, you get to see their body language and pick up on the tone when they're asking questions, when they're going through the proposal with you, and you can handle objections in real time rather than over email back and forth. And you know, most people don't like to be uncomfortable, therefore they will. That's why people ghost you. Is they, rather than say no, they don't say anything at all. And the worst answer from a prospect is no answer at all. So always try and get to a yes or a no, because the no helps you focus your time on the clients that might say yes still. And two last things: if a prospect is ghosting you, pick up the phone and call them. So many people don't do that. They're not expecting your call. That's totally fine. Pick up the call and speak to them. You've earned the right to kind of do that because you have had some interaction. You've spent some time.
I don't know how Gen Z is going to take that advice, but
Well, here's the thing. If Gen Z don't like, if you call somebody and they're like Gen Z or they don't like the fact you call them, it's okay. You just want to get to a yes or a no. And the last thing is to, a lot of agencies send the proposal. They'll have like maybe a post proposal follow-up email, and they have no idea what to say other than, Hi, have you made a decision? Hey, have you looked at the proposal? Hey, did you speak to this person? So I always recommend having some supporting assets. This in the world of sales is known as sales enablement. But an example would be is to if you have a yeah, most of the audience will be agency owners. You have an onboarding process, so show people what that onboarding process is. You have if you're a design agency, you probably have a process for managing iterations or collaborating on feedback. Walk them through that process. You can do a lot of one-to-many videos. So I can record a video of the onboarding process and share that with every prospect that I speak to, because there's a thing called buyer's remorse in B2B. I don't know if you've ever experienced this, Maria, where you spent a bit of money on maybe a hotel or some, I don't know, a fridge, a freezer. If you moved into an apartment and you think, oh, I think I may have spent a bit too much on that. I'm not too sure whether I made the right decision. That happens in B2B and in services as well. So you always want to do your best to eliminate that buyer's remorse, and you can do that by giving them a service ultimately can be quite intangible, and there's lots of things that you do that you can't really quantify, but just showing people what to expect just takes out a lot of the unknown, and the unknown is often the thing that stops people from moving forward.
Sure. Wow. There are so many golden nuggets here. Like we've been through all the questions that I had for you, but yeah, if you have any final words, I know it's hard to maybe wrap up, but like what would you say to, agencies that feel stuck? I think even this last sentence that you just said was really powerful. Like, people are kind of scared of the unknown and they're intimidated to move things forward just because everything seems, gray, cloudy, black. What are some final words like of advice for agencies that feel kind of stuck right now?
Yeah, I would probably, there's two things that I'm going to share. One I've given it before. Another one is like a new thing that I'm developing. The first is to really step back from your agency and look at your kind of digital presence and ask yourself, how easy am I to buy from? So things that you could be looking for is, are my services clear on the website? Can somebody book a call with me directly from the website, or do they have to fill a form that you're going to get an email, then you have to check the email, then you have to reply to the email, and then that prospect never books a call because they've already spoken to two of your competitors because they could book a call directly on the website. um, from a social presence point of view, are you keeping up appearances? Is your LinkedIn active? There's so many marketing agencies that I've seen, and the owner has like 300 connections on LinkedIn. Doesn't give me a good vibe that this person, if you're in marketing, you should be on LinkedIn. I think that's like an unwritten rule. But how easy is it to buy from? And remember that when somebody is looking for a solution to a problem, they are window shopping. They're looking at your website, they're looking at the competitors that you know about, and they're looking at the competitors that you don't know about just yet. So they're making these comparisons, and you need to be the one that's the most appealing with the social proof. Another example for social proof is some companies will put social proof just at the very top of the page, but they've got a very long page talking about their service and their background. But they don't kind of not duplicate the social proof, but they don't split it out across the page. Makes sense to split it out because not everyone's going to scroll back up and have a look at the top again. So have your social proof spread out across your page. And then the other thing, I'm not sure if you've heard of, and not many people have. Have you heard of the baseball team called Savannah Bananas?
No.
No, it's a baseball team in the United States, and this I'm going to butcher the full story, but a guy bought the like the franchise, or bought the team, and he had no idea about baseball. He doesn't have a history. He didn't play baseball, or maybe played it recreationally, but not professionally. And he just sat down and thought, how can we prioritize the fans of the baseball team in everything that we do? So some examples: the name Savannah Banana. He asked the fans to come up with that name. He went with the majority, picked that name. He got the fans to pick out the uniform that they wear in baseball, which is like this outrageous yellow trousers and shirt. Every team member comes out to their own kind of song, like a bit like a boxer going into a ring. They have a dance and they have a song, not the boxers, the baseball players. He also thought that so this is entertainment. Like, how can we make it more entertaining, and how can we include the client, the fans? And then the last example, which I think is probably the best example of how he did this, he said that one of the biggest complaints that baseball fans had was that it was really expensive. There is the entrance for the game, there is the drinks, there is the food, there's the I don't know, the snacks like popcorn, and then there's like the wavy hands, the foam fingers that you see in the crowd. So he said, well, how about we just charge $35, everything's included. And that makes it more affordable for those who were being priced out of the ticket alone being 35, and then the food, because baseball is like a 3-4. I've been to a few baseball games, they're so long, and I left like halfway through. I just didn't know what was going on as well.
Yeah,
But yeah,
you get thirsty.
you get thirsty, yeah. In 3-4 hours, especially in certain parts of the US where it's like hot, you're in the sun. So $35, everything's included in your ticket price, your food, your drinks, making the fans happy. So he wasn't optimizing for return on investment. He wasn't optimizing for profit necessarily. But the marketing now of that company, I've told this story dozens of times to friends. It's the first time I mentioned it on a podcast. I've heard it on another podcast. So I've never been to the game, but I'm describing what he's done for Savannah Bananas. And I think it's just a completely genius move. But the lesson there that agency owners can take is, like, how can we put our clients first? And what can we do to make what can we do to make the experience an amazing experience for them?
Great. Really great. I really like the analogy. Thanks so much for your time, Mark. I think this was, as I said, full of golden nuggets. I got a lot of ideas from you. So I'll be in touch whenever.
Well, definitely, yeah. I'll keep
Yeah.
an eye out.
Thanks so much. Thanks
Thank
for
you,
your time.
Maria.
You too. Talk
Have a
to you
great
soon.
day. Bye
Yeah.
bye.